Alrighty, folks, it is time to check in with Austin real estate market. Also, we're going to talk about NAR settlement and risks to sellers and buyers. But let's get into Austin stats. What is going on in the great state of Texas? And of course, we have the one and only Danielle back with us. How you doing, Danielle?
Fantastic, Mike. It's always a good morning with working with you and talking to you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, do us a favor. I know you are deep in the stats. I know you post stuff on X or Twitter all the time. I think it's been about a month since we have spoken. So, what's been going on in Austin the last 4 or 5 weeks?
So first off, for our buyers, this is a very, very good news. Our inventory has started to rapidly accelerate and increase. So that partly we can maybe attribute it to the first 2 months of the year. We had great buyer action. We saw people out buying, which maybe gave some sellers some confidence, as well as we saw when we saw interest rates fall. That was also getting buyers back. So homeowners were not having to worry about their house sitting for 90 plus days. We've continually seen a decrease in the days on market. However, good news for our buyers is that our number of inventory coming to market is
Hmm.
exceeding that of what is being purchased. So if you remember from
Oh,
our last conversation, we were seeing houses, yes, we were seeing houses hit the market, which was great, but we were seeing a rapid acceleration of buyers. We have
right.
actually slowed down, which more than likely was probably due to the interest rate rising and which is, so that's a good thing because we need some inventory because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, our month of supply it was still rather low. And so we've seen it extremely, I say the acceleration, we are over 21 homes on the market. I think when we talked last
Sorry, you
time,
said 21 homes? You mean
I mean, sorry,
2100?
2,100 homes. Nope,
100.
not 21
No,
homes.
21 or 21,000. 2100.
Uh,
Yeah.
2,100. So we're like 2,186 was like today's numbers.
Okay.
Last time we we were just below 1,800. So
Exactly.
that's a good increase. Our buyers last time we were sitting around, I think it was like around 800 or so, or 800, 900, and
Mhm.
we're just over 1,000. It was like 1,016 or what's under contract right now.
Right. Pending. Yeah.
Um, Also, when it comes down to what has been selling. So I am now tracking, if you look at my daily stats and you expand it at the bottom, you're going to see every single day. I had someone request it. I'm going to do it. Originally, they were requesting just the number of homes on the market, doing you a solid and doing number of homes on market, what is active and what is under contract and pending.
Hmm.
Also, what is closed in the past 30 days, and then
Oh,
what is
nice.
our close rate per month. So I think it's a good idea because then that's really going to tell more of a story than just what's that daily and
Yeah.
what's weekly. But it's nice to keep track of that. With
Yeah.
that being said, we are so for the month of March last year we sold 718 homes. To
Okay.
date, we have sold 556 for the month of March.
Wow.
Yes, I was not expecting that. So when we talked last month, we were accelerating and it was increasing as far as what our supply is. Our rolling 30 day, we're at like 710. So our rolling
Mm.
30 day doesn't even meet our March. So I'm going to attribute a lot of that. Well, there's a couple things that we have going on when we talk about the interest rates, and then you talk about it's football season, but it was football season last year, and it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it was March Madness last year. So those
It's
can
rates. It's all
it,
rates.
it's
It's
all it's
all.
it's all rates. So we're seeing a slowdown, but for my sellers, so good news for my sellers out there. We are seeing homes close out on for if you do list price to close price, our
Mhm.
average is at like a little over 97%, and our median is over 98%. So I also looked at the past 7 days. Our median for the past 7 days is 99%.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. I love talking to agents that are deep in the data and really connecting the dots between our two conversations. So, folks, let's jump in the time machine. And Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong with any of this. But when we talked last time, rates were kind of at the low of the year,
Yes.
right? And oh, by the way, we come into January, they're on a pretty they're falling, which as we saw pulled demand off the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about buyers is they move faster than sellers, right? You come off of holiday season, New Year's, you decide to buy, you decide to buy. You
Correct.
decide to sell, you've got weeks of cleanup and prep and decluttering and shopping for listing agents and all of that stuff.
Yep.
So you decide to buy as rates fall, you're going to deal with the inventory you got. And that's why you had very low listings, and your pendings to new listings was so high. But of course, since we spoke, rates seem to go the other direction, right? Rates spiked and they exceeded 7%. And as I've said repeatedly, the marginal demand turns off at 7, right? 7
Mm-hmm.
bad, 6 good.
Yep.
And I think it is that simple. However, so what happens then? Well, marginal demand pulls back. Sellers are now coming on the market because they've had the 6 weeks to declutter the house and do what they're going to do. And as
Mm-hmm.
buyers pull back, supply comes on, and you get the numbers that you just shared. Now it's going to be interesting
Yes.
because rates are sub 7 again.
Mm-hmm.
We have more inventory. We're in the spring selling season. I am very interested to see what happens over the next 3 weeks because
Yes.
it is possible that marginal demand comes back in such a way that dwarfs the supply. Possible. I'm not saying likely, I'm just saying possible. It is also possible that marginal demand is just tired. They're tired of playing the game. And
Mm-hmm.
they're just gonna, go home and stay home and not do it. It's gonna be very interesting to see.
Well, we have another. So this is gonna, I'm doing a perfect segue, but this is gonna tie into also with the NAR settlement and agreement.
Mhm.
So for the buyers out there, up until June, all of our MLSs, it actually says what the offered commission is. So
Mhm.
for a buyer's agent, or for a buyer himself, they can look online and they can see on realtor.com what is being offered for the commission. So this is, maybe this is a big thing for buyers, is that up until June, it's going to be public knowledge. So if you're a buyer and you are like, hey, look, I know I'm going to be buying, and the NAR discussion that we're about to have, I know that the house is already offering this. So maybe it's going to release some of my fears of me having to come out of pocket to pay a buyer's agent, because you're kind of already seeing what's there. That might spur people to act a little sooner as a buyer's agent, because they're saying, okay, look, I know right now the house I'm offering, I know what that commission is being offered. Come June, it's really,
Yeah, you know, I get it.
yep,
Logically, it makes sense,
yep.
but I'm gonna call BS.
Okay, I
Just,
love this.
just, yeah,
This is,
we're gonna have fun. And the reason I'm gonna call it BS is because what I think is happening, and because you got to put your like, if you're someone like me who's bought 100 or whatever
yes.
homes, it just doesn't matter.
No, it
It's
doesn't matter
just
because you're
noise.
going to negotiate it.
Yeah, I would have negotiated anyway. But if you're a first time home buyer and you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing headlines, bam, 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 all over the place, I bet you're more confused today than before. And you're like, and anytime you're a confused first time buyer of anything, a car,
You're
a
slow down.
house, you just sit your ass down. You're like, too hard. You're just going to the too hard camp. Too
Oh, I
hard.
love this. And this is what I love about your podcast as you bring that too. So that what I just kind of said, I was just literally thinking it out as we're talking that. So it wasn't something that's come before.
Sure.
And I love this because you're exactly right. People get scared. They don't have the knowledge and they pull back. So I think that's a great thing. And especially when we start going into like the negotiations, which is we'll
Yeah.
go in and we'll roll in and we'll talk about that. But
But
Mike, that's why I appreciate you. You're exactly right. When people are scared of the unknown, they pull back. Because I guarantee you, if you asked a poll right now, how many knew that it goes into effect on June? Agents know.
yeah, agents know, a couple of investors who read the news know,
Yep.
but no. But so I think the average consumer, first time home buyer, is going to say too hard and pull back.
Mm-hmm.
However, where you get the masses doing, it's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was a licensed agent, which I am not, you are, and I realized that the too hard word or feeling is going to come up, I would do everything I could. I would do a series. I would do you know, a lot of agents that I've seen so far think they can answer the questions in one 15-minute video.
Nope.
If you've got a consumer who's looking at the biggest purchase of their life, sitting down because it's too hard, and they're at the kitchen table or going for a walk or doing whatever they're doing, you got to break this thing down in bite-sized pieces.
I
You've
love it.
got to you got to talk about the 21 hard questions you should ask yourself or know about. You should talk about how to interview because this whole home buying process is going to change forever.
Mm-hmm.
you need to interview buyer's agents. You need to
Absolutely.
understand the buyer agent agreement. You need to understand the value add, and oh gee, it's gonna be crazy. But where there is fear, there's opportunity. And
Oh,
some agents will win and most will fail.
well, and the way I look at it is you can either be a cow or you can be a bison. A cow is going to sit and let the storm hit them. A bison is going to charge through the storm and get through it.
Yeah, they turn
So,
in they turn into the storm. Well, the only animal that I know of that turns into the storm because they know it'll be
yes.
over.
So
Yeah.
as an agent, you should be calling and saying, "Hey, look, there's a lot of headlines out there. We talked about you buying. Are you still interested in buying this year? Great. I'm not worried about when you're buying it, but I want to educate you now. I want to educate you now on what this whole settlement means. Because if I can start talking to you now and building it up, then when it comes to time to buy, you already have that knowledge. And when we're signing that contract, you're
Yeah.
making an educated decision. And so that's also
Yeah.
why I do home buyers 101. I don't bring my first time home buyers. I really don't show them homes unless we've done that because they need to
Yeah.
understand that this contract that they're signing, what it actually means. Like you could go to court if you default on this contract. This is
Yeah,
what this means.
absolutely.
This is a
Yeah.
serious thing that you're buying, as well as like you said, it's probably some of the most expensive investments people are going to
Yeah.
make.
Again, if I was a licensed agent, I would be the bison. I would turn into the storm. I would create a series of videos on one topic at a time. I would brainstorm all the hard questions. I would do an education 101. I would probably put a couple of those videos out in the public and everything else behind some kind of wall so that you can control your people.
Mm-hmm.
And, at the end of it, you sign the buyer's agreement. And let's just talk about what you talked about, going to court or being in trouble. Um, People like I'm so nervous for these first time home buyers. You go in, you talk to an agent, find a house you like, you sign a buyer's agreement. You don't read it. You get a DocuSign on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
You're driving, you click it, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, you want to see a different house. You do the same thing. You do that 3 or 4 times. And then, oh, by the way, you buy a house with a fifth agent. In theory, you might owe 5 people commission.
Yep.
That is bananas.
And with that, so in the past, people's buyer's agreement. So in Texas, so this is the thing. In Texas, majority of Texas agents have always, it's just kind of been put out there is that we have a buyer's rep agreement. So in other states, you don't have to have one. So in
Yeah.
California, you don't have to have one. Now
Yeah.
with the
I haven't
settlement,
signed one ever in
yeah.
California.
So now the new settlement is before I can even show Mike a home, he has to sign an agreement. Like
Exactly.
period, end of story, which is also great because I've had some clients that didn't want to sign, and at the end of the time it's my time, and so
Yeah. Mhm.
it's the value add that I bring to you. So like you said, you can't go off and sign all these. So if you are listening and you are signing these agreements, make sure
Oh,
your agreements are for a specific set of time that you are doing it, and make
or a
sure before
specific,
you sign another
ideally,
one.
a specific house. I mean, that's what
Mm-hmm.
I would do.
Yep.
Like, they will give you the commission on that house.
Yep.
I mean, let's be honest. How many people read the DocuSigns? 5%, 10%,
Yep.
less? Be careful, folks. This is going to get dicey. But again, when I look at this from the buyer side, I just see an opportunity to dominate. There's going to
Mm-hmm.
be some people like yourself who see it, who kind of create the buyer 101, who do the kind of breakdown, who really treat it as a service and value. And then on the other, because this is what's going to happen on the buyer side. This just came to me. You're going to have people like you that have a service and are building value around it. And then you're going to have these discount chains, $500, per whatever showing
Yeah.
or whatever the heck they do. There'll be two extremes. There frankly might be a new company created just to represent buyers. I
Oh,
mean, could you see Zillow, Redfin just doing that?
absolutely. Now, and that's where it goes back to is like, what is your agent worth? So, what is your agent worth in regards to like negotiations? What is your agent worth in regards to like we say we're the data-driven all-in-one approach. So, as far as like when it comes to your inspections, when it comes to negotiating your inspections, when it
Mhm.
comes to so much more, like I don't see my value add is not showing you the house. My value add
Right.
is so much more than that. And so finding an agent whose value add is significantly more, that's when your ROI, your return on investment, meaning their commission is their investment. Like what you're paying
Mhm.
to them is your investment. That is where it's going to come to a head of it's where. And then also talking about lawsuits. So we talked about the buyer signing all these things. I've been making a point to sit into as many webinars, whether it's Tom Ferry, whether it's my brokerage, to hear as many viewpoints as possible. And one that came out yesterday was very, very interesting is right now with commission, and it's public knowledge what it is, when it's no longer and it's a negotiated thing, and the agents can offer it, I mean, sellers can offer it, and they can put it on individual websites for individual properties, but can't
Yep.
make databases. But what happens when and this is where this is scary, fair housing. So
Mm,
when you are a
yes.
seller and you have a seller's agent, you need to make sure that when you are negotiating, like let's say you get multiple offers, and when you're negotiating commission, you better darn well make sure that when you're negotiating commission with multiple offers, that you do not violate any fair housing. Because let me
Oh,
tell you, that is scary. That is worth way more than that 2% that you might be saving. If let's say an agent finds out, especially when it closes. So when it closes out, let's say someone calls and finds out what the commission is and finds out that maybe they offered more, or they are paying a higher commission and their offer was less. And all of a sudden now it's a redlining, because we cannot be naive that it does
yep.
happen. There are
Yeah, of
people that
course.
are looking
Yeah.
out for, maybe it's a 30 house neighborhood, and and they want
Yeah.
to keep it that way.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happens when they find out it's not? So that's
Yeah.
that's my scary thing for a buyer. Um,
Yeah. The
Even
other,
if it's
you're
I
right.
mean, for a
Yeah.
seller.
Yeah. For a seller. The other thing about sellers is I've been doing this for a long time. I bought my first investment property in 2002. I have seen the craziest sellers markets and the craziest buyers market.
Mm-hmm,
And this NAR settlement, assuming it goes as expected, is coming out at probably a decent time for sellers,
mm-hmm.
right? If there was ever a time in my investing career where you could quote unquote squeeze commissions because it's easy to sell, it's today,
Yep.
right? It just is. However, I'm not naive enough to realize that this market will change, and I think it will change faster than people expect. And then watch out,
Yep.
right? When sellers don't have the power, when
Yeah.
it goes from, like today, I don't know, there's 20 buyers for every 5 good homes. There will be a time there's 20 homes and only 5 buyers.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have some fun
That's
then?
what we saw in Austin last year. That's literally what we did. And then it
Yeah,
also goes back to,
it's going
you
to be
might
a
be trying to
mess.
save your commission. And let's say you have an unrepresented first time home buyer. So they know
Ah,
nothing.
nothing.
Well, what happens when you don't disclose something that you were supposed to disclose? And had they had the representation, had you paid a commission for representation, and I'll be honest, first and foremost, I should say this up front. I, as an agent, know that there are bad agents out there.
Oh, of
So this is going to
course.
weed some of them out. But if you don't have representation, whether it's an agent, whether it's an attorney, I'm not saying it has to be an agent.
No, it doesn't. It
And
could be an
let's
attorney.
say you sign this contract and you find out later on down the road that, let's say there's a square footage discrepancy that would have been caught if you had
There
had
was
an
a
agent.
death on the property. There
Oh,
was,
it's a stigmatized. Do
yeah.
you think that that 3% commission that you say, or that the seller that you save by not having the other party represented, is going to be worth it?
Hello. It could be,
It's going to
yeah,
be most likely
nasty.
substantially more.
Yeah, there's the home buying process is it's complicated. There's lots of moving pieces, and that's why and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there was a time where there weren't really buyers agents. I don't think buyers agents was a thing
Mm-hmm,
until I think the early 80s because of litigation, because of
mm-hmm.
protecting the seller and the seller's agent and brokerage. Because when you do it with just one agent, who are they really representing?
Yep.
It's the seller, right?
Yep.
It's the seller. So
When I have if I have, I've had unrepresented buyers come to me before, and I say flat out, my fiduciary duty is to the seller. That's
right.
You can represent yourself. And I did have someone that represented themselves, but they were a real estate investor, and it was a
Yeah.
completely different thing. And then also I got permission from my seller to give them comps. So in
Okay.
the state of Texas, we are a non-disclosure state, meaning if you're
Yep.
choosing to represent yourself, you don't know what the other house is sold for. You know what
Yeah.
they were listed for. You don't know what they sold for. So you get under contract, and let's say you don't have a clause that says the house must appraise. It doesn't have to appraise. You didn't put it in because you didn't have an agent tell you this. And
Yeah.
now your house is 30,000 ETH under, but
Yeah. Good luck writing that check. Yeah.
you were going to put down 25% anyways, or you were going to put down an amount that you could still cover, the lender can still qualify you for that loan. Now you're coming out of pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the home buying process has changed. Some would argue for the better. If you're a seller, I could see it. I can
Mm-hmm.
see it. You're going to net a little more.
Yep.
But on the buyer side, the only buyers that are helped out of this are investors like me
Mm-hmm.
and big institutions.
Yep. Oh, big institutions,
They don't care.
they don't care. They
Right?
have
Home builders don't care, right?
no.
People on my channel will know this, but I'll just share the story for folks who don't know it. Olivia and I bought a seven-figure brand new home last year, and we were working with an agent. It's been on my channel. His name's Brian Lebo. He's great. He showed us all around Vegas, but nothing worked until we found this brand new community and this special place, and we bought it. All he had to do with Lennar at the time was register us, and he made 2%. I guarantee you, post June, Lennar's not paying that. And if they are, they're paying 1%.
Yeah.
So builders will net more.
Yeah.
It's just they
Builders,
don't have to pay.
they don't, if they, especially if they come, and this is also where I, with a buyer's rep agreement, with especially with new construction, talk a lot about. So it's the signing, but as far as knowing when the phase inspection are, how to negotiate in the phase inspections, also how to negotiate with the builder. So I've had lots of
Yeah.
builders that it's listed, especially with inventory. So if we go back to when it was the peak, if it's a seller's market, builders will offer 1%.
Oh yeah.
If it is a
All day.
buyer's market, which we saw last year in Austin, we had
Yeah.
builders offering 4%.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
That's
just
yes.
builders are going to be dependent upon what's happening in the market.
Do they need to move inventory or not?
Yep.
Exactly. And again, back to just kind of closing on the story, we actually found a kind of hole in the system or hole in the matrix. We found a unit that was built for someone else who backed out.
Oh, that's the
Uh,
best.
yeah, the builder, it was finished. So we got 12% discount. We got them to buy down the rate to 499, 30-year fixed. We got 10K in closing cost credit. We had no lot premium. We paid none of the upgrades, and we got our agent paid 2%. I
That's
negotiate hard.
Brian, right?
Brian's the guy. I did all the work. I ain't got
Kudos
paid,
to
but I
Brian
did the work.
there.
Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing. And so yeah, that is gonna come out too. And
Yeah.
so the other thing is I say buyers beware hopping straight into these new builds as well
Ugh.
with no agent, because I'm selling a house right now from someone that bought without an agent, and they were just telling me these nightmares of the builder trying to close without ovens, without this, and like
Yeah.
convincing them and like not having any of their inspections done. I'm going, oh my gosh, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, builders are the fox
Yeah.
guarding the hen house.
Yeah, they're a for-profit institution. They need to move inventory to hit numbers. A lot of them are publicly traded. So yeah, it's going to
Yes.
be interesting. But
So
let's go back. I'm going to go back real quick because this just jumped out at me. I'm looking at my notes I've taken, which thank you. I've taken a lot of notes so far. You talked about the numbers so far in March being
mhm,
significant, like closings being
mhm,
down from February.
mhm.
Do I have that right?
Yeah, we're down. So
So
it
I want to talk about this because I think it was Thursday last week. NAR reported the blowout February numbers. Annualized was like 4.38. The experts were 3.95. Big miss. I was one of the few people that came out and told people, hey guys, you're not paying attention. February is going to blow it out. And it did. I want to call right now. If Austin, Texas is down 20% from February,
yeah.
we could be in a March is going to be ugly.
Yeah, March's numbers will be bad. I think April, though, because I'm also tracking the 30 days. So
Yeah, because we're going to roll. Because again, rates matter.
our 30 day we're at like 710. So let's put this, our 30 day we're at 710. Last year in March we closed out 718. Our under contract is like 1,016.
Oh, yeah.
So
Rates matter. Seven
we're
good or seven bad, six good.
we're gonna see it. So that's gonna go back to where it is. But I also want to hop on one thing that you said for the
Sure.
sellers when we were talking
Please.
about commissions. Going back to that, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm tracking, and I've done the numbers once. I actually did the numbers today to kind of track. I'm tracking commissions that are below 3%, how long they're
Oh,
staying on market, commissions that are pending, as well as commissions that are selling. And so we are seeing those that are offering lower commissions. They're sitting on the market longer, as well as we're seeing them close. Now, this month was a little bit better than when I did it last month. It's about 2% underneath. So right now, the median is like 96% is what a sub 3% commission was closing. We are seeing the other ones are closing at like 98%. So we're
okay.
seeing a little bit difference. It'll be interesting for me to track it until those numbers go away in June. But one of the things I want to put out there is to people understand is that as a seller, when the buyer has to pay the commission, the other thing that happens is the buyer's purchasing power goes down.
Oh, way down.
Because I did this the other day. So if someone has $100,000 that they, now we're going to exclude all the additional closing costs, but we're doing $100,000 for down payment and agent commission. If the other side, and let's just say it's a 2% commission, we're not even going 3, we're going 2%. So point, out of that $100,000, they've got to make a 10% down payment and 2. So 0.12 or 10, 12%
Yeah,
of the
12%. Yeah.
sales price. If they were not paying commission, it was just 10% down, they could buy the $1 million house. If they have to come out of pocket for 2%, their purchasing power goes from 1 million to 833,000.
Wow, that big a
Yes,
hit.
I have the data. I put it on there. I broke it out so people can see simple math on my X channel yesterday or a couple days ago. I can repost it.
Yeah,
But what
post
that
it.
essentially
Yeah.
says is that goes back to, as a seller's agent, my job is to increase the price point at how much it sells for. So supply and demand curve, and you have one house, one supply, demand. How can we increase it? Well, if you're eliminating all these buyers, your demand is going to go down, which can negatively affect you. Now, that's
Yeah.
why the institutional investors love this, because they've got either the deep pockets to pay that
They
commission,
write a check.
they write
Yeah.
a check, or they don't even have one, but they're not worried because of, as
No.
far as like their experience. So
This,
that's the
yeah. Yeah.
other
This is
thing to think
why,
about is, how does
yeah.
not paying a commission affect? So what might have been, let's say what might have been 20 grand, it's no, that you're paying commission. Now all of a sudden that person can only buy at 833. They're not even looking at your house. So take that, I
Yeah.
say, take all of these numbers into consideration
Yeah.
when you're
That's a
making
great
these
point.
decisions.
Yeah. Because again, the funds to pay everybody comes from the buyer, and most people get loans, right? That's where the
Mm-hmm.
funds come from, which
Yep,
is the
exactly.
combination of loan and down payment. If you take, seemingly let's get $1 million house, 2%, that's 20 grand, right? So that person has to pay 20 grand. Now they only have 80 grand left. Yeah, you're right. Now they can only afford a smaller home. So
Mm-hmm.
it's,
Yep.
it's, it's going to get wild. And again, I think your last point is exactly what I see. I see the momentum coming. This is going to be, like we talked earlier, too hard. Now you're going to restrict the buyer pool, and inventory will grow. And pretty soon it won't be a buyer's market, or it won't be a
So
seller's market. It'll be a buyer's market.
yes, and so that's where it goes back to, is like, what are you strategically doing to continue to increase your demand? And that's also where a good agent, if you're a good seller's agent and you're explaining and you're breaking down these numbers and you're seeing like what is actually, is it worth it for you? But that's also why I'm tracking the trends of how many people are offering less in Austin, because then I can take it to my sellers and say, hey, look, this is what's currently happening. How is it actually, is this going to be beneficial to you? Like, when you think that you might be saving 20 grand, is it going to hurt more? Especially if, like, let's say they're closing at 2% less. Well, there's that 20 grand right there. You're closing less. And other thing that this is really going to hurt, and this is me being a veteran myself, is the VA
VA.
loan
Oh,
does not allow a buyer to pay commission. If it is a VA, the seller has to pay that commission.
yeah. I mean, both my parents served, and that was the first place I went, was the VA loan, non-permissionable transaction or line item or whatever it's called. You essentially could stop VAs from buying homes as the NAR settlement's written today. In theory, a veteran could never use the VA product. In theory,
Unless the VA comes back and changes. Now that will be a whole nother
oh, it'll
discussion.
be years. You
Yep,
think that
yep.
changes fast?
No, no. And well, and the other, or someone's going to come up with some sort of product, but that's, I don't even know how that's even possible. But also, with that being said, so another thing is that you can offer, so as a seller and as a buyer, to be, let's talk about this, because I think it's very important that our buyers and our sellers understand. As a seller, you can offer commission, and then you can also offer what's called concessions. So concessions is money that is used to pay closing costs, buy down rates, titles, all of that. What a buyer has to understand is that depending on the type of loan and depending on what your down payment is, there's only so much of a
Yeah.
concession that you can ask.
There's
So if
restrictions. Yeah.
you're
2%, 3%. Yeah.
conventional loan versus FHA loan versus USDA versus VA, you can
Yeah.
only get, so some of them you can only get 2%.
Yeah.
So if you are an unrepresented buyer and you think you did a phenomenal job of,
Uh,
I'm going to ask for 8% in concessions, or different things like that, you might negotiate this on your own, even if you don't have an agent. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden you get to the closing table, and what you don't know is that your bank has limited how
Yep.
much of the concession you can get. And so you might have thought you've negotiated and you're going to lose $20,000 that you negotiated, because in that contract it says that that the concessions, any leftover concessions, go back to the seller.
Yeah. It's at the end of the day, the home buying process has changed. I'm not sure if on net it's better or worse. I do think there's going to be lots of opportunities. I think you said this earlier. I think, I actually think there's a chance we have 40 to 50% less agents in 2 years. Because
Oh,
again, people get a license, it just rolls, right?
yes.
I think in 2 years we might have 40% less, and that might be a positive.
Yeah.
The average quality of an agent might skyrocket.
Oh,
I'm
and
okay
that
with
is
that.
okay. So that's something I kind of hit on. And I've hit it on and talked in another podcast about this, is that I am all for it being harder to become a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Um, Austin, or not Austin, just Texas in general, they tried to make it harder to become a real estate agent, and it came back and they said, no, we don't want the barrier of entry to be higher, especially because the people that are typically agents are moving. Maybe it's military spouses, just like teaching certifications, all of that. Well, when you actually think about making it harder to become a real estate agent, who benefits? Number one, good agents, because the
Yep.
bad agents get eliminated. Two, buyers and sellers. They do great. Who does not benefit? Well, I can tell you, people that have a membership dues based on the number of agents. So we're talking about
Yeah.
your MLSs, we're talking about NAR, we're talking about all that. They want
Yep.
more agents.
Yeah.
Then we're talking about, let's say, the CRM, so customer relationship management
Hmm.
systems. They need more agents. The
Yep.
advertising companies need more agents. So in the big, this is where it's going to be very interesting about what NAR does, what all the local MLSs does, because at the end of the day, their pockets are going to hit if
Oh
agents
yeah.
leave.
Oh, for
They are
sure.
going to do, we're probably going to see massive campaigns, and I'm already seeing it. All of these MLSs are doing the best that they can in order to increase agents to stay on and convince them. And these big Williams, big companies. I was thinking Keller Williams at the same time.
Ah.
They have monthly dues from agents, regardless of if they perform or not. They're having
Mhm.
desk fees. So the big brokerages need more agents. That's how they make
Absolutely.
their money.
Yeah.
Um, it is going to be and this is actually, I'm going to predict and put this out there. I wonder if the local MLSs are going to start charging a transaction fee. I mean, at the end of the day, like,
Yeah.
they've got to figure a way to recoup the cost. And if agents go down, how are they going to
Yep.
recoup the cost? Stitch.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got a Frenchie over here and he is
Oh,
snoring away. And I just
I can't
realized
hear
that.
him. We're good. I can't hear him.
Okay.
We're good. That's awesome. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, the housing market's changed. It'll probably change forever, good or bad. It'll be left to figure it out. The system will work. The good ones will get better. The bad ones will go away. Um, I do think first-time home buyers VA is as it's currently written are hurt the most. I think
Okay.
there's huge risks just given consumer behavior. I'm really, really wild about that March. I'm gonna actually, that'd probably be the title of the videos, March transactions to crash. Because I don't think
Mm-hmm.
anybody sees it coming. I think everybody's
No.
shocked at how strong February was. But again, February closings, January rates. I mean, it is that simple.
And I'd love to see from your channels, because I know there's a lot of other agents. Hey, if you're on this, if the video pops up, if it's on X, I'd love for you to throw out what's
Yeah, tell
going on
us.
in your closing. Let's
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah, folks. Again, a lot of agents watch this video. Do me a favor. How many closings thus far in March versus how many in February? Are you like Austin, Texas, and down 10, 15%? A lot of people don't see this coming. Danielle, if somebody wanted to buy or sell or just wanted to reach out to you, follow you, where should we send them?
So if you're on X, it's at the One Realty that you'll find me. You'll look at Danielle Fountain. If you also go to Mike's channel, you'll probably see something of me on there. You can also go to just www.theonerealty.com. That's my website, or email me at danielle@theonerealty.com.
You are amazing, Danielle. Thank you for being here. Thank you for jumping on.
Absolutely.